Hello, welcome everyone. This is Ask the Dietitian with Chef Eric. Feel free to post any questions in the chat or come on screen if you're able to do so. Today we're going to be talking about hypertension and how nutrition affects that particular chronic condition. So feel free to, once again, post any questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring that. Or feel free to come on screen so we can see your lovely face and we can have an interactive dialogue. All right, I was waiting for a few attendees, but what we'll do is hopefully this session is being recorded and we can share the information afterwards. But in general, the biggest thing, I think about 70% of people with African descent over 50 have hypertension. So it's one of the most prolific diseases out there. And high blood pressure is synonymous with hypertension. Some people know they have it and are managing it through medication, diet, and exercise, and some people do not. It's often called a silent killer because over time it will affect your heart and other organs. And one of the easiest ways to address hypertension, once again, is through prevention. Diet, you want to watch your sodium intake, for example. A lot of Americans overconsume sodium. The recommended amount, daily recommended amount of intake for sodium is 2,300 milligrams. And for people living with hypertension, it's actually less. It should be about 1,500 milligrams per day. So you really have to look at nutrition labels and look at how much sodium is in your respective food and kind of plan out your meals and make sure that they're low sodium. The other piece is watching saturated fat. This is the fat that is liquid at room temperature. I'm sorry, unsaturated fat is liquid at room temperature, and saturated fat is solid at room temperature. And so the fat on steak or butter, for example, would have, saturated fat. Not that you can't have it, but saturated fat should be limited to 10% of your total calories. The next thing is cholesterol. So sodium, what sodium does is put pressure on your arteries and presses out against your arteries and affects the elasticity of your arteries, which makes it, could cause ruptures or, once again, wear out the pipes that are coming from your heart. Next, we have cholesterol. In the saturated fat, of course, cholesterol, the daily recommended intake is about 300 milligrams. And cholesterol and saturated fat can form plaque in your arteries, which decreases the diameter. And so now you have a smaller travel port for your blood to go through, which can make your heart work harder to get the same amount of blood and oxygen throughout all areas of your body. So once again, sodium pushes outward, messes with the elasticity of your arteries, and saturated fat and cholesterol actually shrinks the diameter because it could form plaque. And the last thing is added sugars. These are all sugars that are not naturally occurring from carbohydrates like fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and whole grains. And added sugars also have been added to the nutrition facts label. And you want those, much like saturated fat, to be 10% of total calories or less. Added sugars will act much like sodium and change the viscosity of the blood and push outward on the arteries, putting that pressure on arteries. So those are the main nutrients that you need to be careful of when you're eating. Once again, all foods are great, no foods are bad. But if you look at a traffic light system, green light, yellow light, red light, green would be, leafy green vegetables, broccoli, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains, lean protein, healthy fats. Yellow would be, an example would be broccoli, and now you add maybe a little bit of cheese sauce to it. And then red light would be what you only eat every so often, would be a tempurified broccoli floret with, a teriyaki sauce that is high in sodium and added sugar. While it's still broccoli, it started off whole, then it got more processed along the way, and you added things to it that would make it less nutrient dense. Okay, we got a question from Caroline. Do you have any information on how to maintain a plant-based diet and ensure that I'm receiving all nutrients? Thank you. So thanks for that question. Yes, I do. So a plant-based diet, first of all, should also involve whole foods. So it's going to involve fruits and vegetables and whole grains. So your fruits and vegetables are very nutrient dense. And then your whole grains have not only carbs, and then you're going to replace animal protein, of course, with plant-based proteins. And so now you're talking about whole grains, legumes, lentils, beans, grains like quinoa, brown rice, all have, good amount of plant-based proteins in them. And then, healthy fats as well, your olive oils, nuts, seeds. Nut seeds also have a good amount of protein. So a lot of people under the misperception that, you won't get the proper amount of protein and you'll be malnourished. That's not the case. I actually went vegan for a year and had great workouts, great energy, and was actually stronger than I ever been. You look at the animal kingdom, elephants, gorillas are some of the most powerful animals in the universe, and they're plant-based. And so some people do variations. Some people go pescatarian. Some people go whole food plant-based. I know there are a lot of meat substitutes out there, Impossible and Beyond. I would treat those just like, limited items, like, vegan junk food, not to be eaten on a consistent basis. But, you can definitely get great protein and so forth. And a lot of people talk about complete proteins. If you eat a well-balanced diet, you should be fine. And one of the things that's a little bit more difficult to get with a plant-based diet is vitamin B12. And so you probably want to supplement that. And so a lot of people, when they remove dairy, animal products from their diet, a good bioavailable multivitamin, like one a day, should be, fine to take. I would definitely, let your doctor know, because you might be taking other medication that could, have counter effects to supplement. But most multivitamins, don't have negative counter reactions with, medication. So good multivitamins going to have B12, vitamin D, and definitely some calcium. But once again, you can get calcium from all the plant-based options. So great question. Do we have any more questions out there? What are the best sources of essential nutrients like protein, vitamins, and minerals? So for vitamins and minerals, it's definitely going to be fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains. And for protein, it should be lean protein. The reason why I say lean protein, the bigger the animal, the more saturated fat you have. So you start off with, fish, poultry, chicken, turkey, move on to pork, bigger animal, and then cows, for example, lamb and cows, are going to be bigger. So the more lean, the less saturated fat intake you will have, and then low saturated fat intake is associated with positive heart disease prevention. So those are some things that I would look at from protein. And once again, you should be adding plant-based proteins into your diet as well, whole grains, legumes, beans, and things like that, to complement animal sources as well. Great questions. And so, for also just to piggyback, got some great colleagues out there. Piggyback on the plant-based question. Tracy McCorder has a really good book called "By Any Greens Necessary." By Any Greens Necessary, that really discusses the African diaspora plant-based movement. It's not just about health; it's also about food justice. Growing your own food, knowing where your food comes from, and being in more control of your food system. My parents grew up on farms. They grew their own food. They worked the land. Very rarely was there a fast food restaurant around. They were very active, and so that really helped them, be at a healthy state. These days, many of us don't know how our food is sourced, and we are not careful to pick food that is sustainably sourced. We overconsume from a portion control standpoint, and we're eating foods that are high in sodium, fat, and cholesterol, saturated fat and cholesterol, and that has gotten us in a little trouble. About 70% of chronic diseases can be addressed through healthy lifestyle, diet, exercise, and getting more control of your environment. And so those are some good resources. So Tracy McCorder, Any Greens Necessary. And there's a lot of great cookbooks out there. Sweet Potato Soul is one that I can think of that has some really great recipes, taking African cultural favorites and making them, in a healthy vegan version. There's also the Plant-Based Reboot by a couple fellow dietitians that are really trying to appeal to African American taste, but in a healthy way. So yeah, I would definitely go explore. Amazon has a lot of great selections of great books. There's also Bryant Terry, Afro Vegan. So there's a lot of great resources out there if you're looking to go plant-based in a culturally inclusive way. So yeah, I discussed the diet affecting the blood pressure a little bit earlier. There's a couple things, a couple nutrients on how they affect blood pressure. So both sodium and added sugar, excessive intakes actually cause pressure outward on the arteries, which makes your arteries more susceptible to ruptures, which could lead to things like aneurysms and so forth. And then things like saturated fat and cholesterol actually would form plaque in your on your arteries, which decreases the diameter, which also makes your heart work harder. There are certain nutrients that also help blood pressure by just having healthy cell growth. And then the other nutrient that you should be aware of as well is water. And so regardless of if you're plant-based or you still eat animal products, water is also 70% of our body is made up of water. So those are all things that you want to think about. You definitely want to have good potassium. Sodium is still needed, but you also want to look at regulating potassium as far as is another key nutrient that helps affect blood pressure. So what foods should I avoid or limit to help manage my blood pressure? Foods that are high in sodium. I stated before that if you have hypertension or high blood pressure, you should limit your sodium intake to 1,500 milligrams per day. So if you eat 3 meals a day, each meal should be no more than 500 milligrams. If you do not have high blood pressure and it's not a concern, your blood pressure is not rising, your doctor has not put you on any medication or any alerts that you have high blood pressure, you can go up to 2,300 milligrams per day for sodium. Cholesterol should be limited to 300 milligrams. I have a lot of clients, they just like, hey, it's not an issue. If you do not have high cholesterol, it's not much of an issue. But if you have high cholesterol, for example, if you're an egg person and you ate 2 or 3 eggs scrambled eggs per day, that's almost 450 milligrams of cholesterol. So you might want to switch to, egg whites, for example, which would take the cholesterol down to almost virtually zero. You also want to watch saturated fat, which should be less than 10% of your total calories. So if you have a 2,000 calorie diet, no more than 200 grams should come from saturated fat. And the same was with added sugars. Added sugars are sugars that occur that are from a non-naturally occurring carbohydrate source, like fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains. And so these are things like, sugar sweetened beverages, candy, high fructose corn syrup. You'll see a lot of things if you read the nutrition label that are sweetener substitutes or additives. And they will now in the nutrition facts label, you can see them under added sugars. They have a separate category, and those should be no more than 10% of your total calories as well. Yes, so the DASH diet was developed by the National Heart and Lung Institute. There's certain parameters that are going with the DASH diet. I'm going to do a quick Google search to talk about the nutrition profile of the DASH diet. Nutrition requirements. Let me see if I can pull it up right quick. So, for example, the DASH diet suggested servings are grains 6 to 8 servings per day, vegetables 4 to 5 servings per day. Usually a serving of vegetables or fruits is like a cup. Fat-free or low dairy products. Once again, we want to limit saturated fat. Lean meats, poultry and fish. 6 1-ounce servings of fewer a day. Most people overconsume protein. Nuts, seeds, dry beans, and peas. 4 or 5 servings a week. And so those are some things that, we've been discussing. And so if you want to, you can Google Mayo Clinic, for example, and they talk about some of the things I talk about. They talk about the DASH diet and sodium. They talk about what to eat. It's rich in potassium, calcium, magnesium, fiber, protein, low in saturated fat, low in salt. They have suggested servings based on the 2,000 calorie diet. We talk about limiting alcohol and caffeine. For example, if you drink coffee, you should probably have no more than 400 milligrams of caffeine per day. They talk about how to aim at how to lower salt. Taste your food before you eat it. Use salt-free spices like they have Mrs. Dash, or you can use herbs and spices. You can use citrus fruits to be able to, season a lot of food. So there's a lot of information out there about DASH. You can either go to the NIH site or you can go to credible sources like the Mayo Clinic, and they explain the benefits of the DASH diet. But the acronym stands for the Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. It was designed to prevent and treat high blood pressure. And then one of the other side effects, it also may help lower cholesterol linked to heart disease. And 2 things you also want to, so you definitely want to know your numbers. Your blood pressure, you usually get that checked every time you go to the hospital or urgent care, so forth. You can also buy a great electronic blood pressure cuff on Amazon. You also want to know your LDL, low density lipoprotein. That is the bad cholesterol. And you also want to know the good cholesterol number, which is the HDL. So those are just a couple numbers. And taking one step further, you also probably want to look at triglycerides. This is the fat that's floating around in your blood, every day. So those are some numbers that you want to know. But yes, it can help prevent and treat hypertension. So alcohol intake in general not just affects hypertension, but too much alcohol can definitely increase blood pressure. And the recommendation based on the USDA's dietary guidelines for Americans, the men limit alcohol to no more than 2 drinks a day and women to no more than 1. So those are some things. And then, of course, the amount of alcohol a Long Island iced tea is going to be much different than a couple ounces of wine. But, and not only does it affect your blood pressure, of course, it affects your liver and your kidneys. So those are some things that you want to, so affects your immune system and your ability to be able to get rid of toxic waste through your liver and your kidneys. So once again, the recommendation is about 2 moderate drinks per day for men and 1 for women. So great question. What are some strategies to reduce sodium when eating out or ordering takeout? Most large restaurants have their nutrition facts available if you request them, or you can look them up online. So whenever I'm going out, I try to plan a little bit ahead and just look up the menu items, see if they have nutrition facts available. There's also another great website called Calorie King, in which you can put in certain restaurant items, and you can tell all the nutrition facts, all the way from calories to fat to cholesterol and so forth. For smaller mom and pop, restaurants, nutrition facts probably aren't available unless the local municipal code mandates that. You can probably have a talk with the server or whoever's the owner and ask for low sodium items. Which items on the menu are low in sodium. Let them know that you're trying to watch your sodium. You don't have to tell them why. It's none of their business. And then, get recommendations. So if you're at a restaurant, ask for the items that are a little bit low in sodium. But you already know that certain items that are processed, like, previously frozen, things like French fries, onion rings, those type of things, fried foods are going to definitely be higher in sodium. Your fresher foods, like your leafy greens, your salads, fresh fish, whole grains, fresh vegetables, should have a lower salt content. And sometimes you can request, depends on whether or not they're doing batch cooking or they're making the order. You can request that no sodium is added to your food, and you would much prefer to add your sodium yourself. And so you can ask to have sauces on the side. You can ask for your food not to be salted, even in a place like a fast food burger joint. I used to actually work for one of the largest ones in the world, and people would request that no salt was added to French fries, for example. The burgers and things like that, it's a lot different because, once again, a lot of food is frozen. Sodium is already added as a preservative and for flavoring. And so typically most places away from home, it's hard to control the sodium because people want to make sure that you have a great experience. And so they flavor the food and they add sodium, once again, for flavoring and a preservative. So the shelf life extends for a particular food product. But there's a lot of things. So look up, the menu items before you get there if you can. Once you get there, see if the nutrition information is available. If that's not available, ask the server for low sodium items. And then you can also look for the fresher items on the menu, or you can ask the server for their recommendations for low sodium. And then you can ask for food and sauces to be on the side. And once again, for your food not to be salted, and you can add that a little bit later. So once again, great question. So this is a recent thing in the last couple of years. A lot of the weight loss drugs, a lot of people can't get them unless, they start off as pre-diabetes, diabetes, and now they do have versions just for weight loss. And so even if you're on a weight loss drug, you should learn healthy lifestyle habits. So you need to do a lot of research or meet with someone like me, a dietitian, in order to learn healthy lifestyle habits. Because once you're off the drug, you should not be on the drug for most of them are 6 months, year max, because your insurance, wants to provide a brief intervention and help you lose 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds in that particular time. But you should learn healthy lifestyle habits while you're taking the drug. So after you get off the drug, you can sustain, a healthy weight loss. And those lifestyle habits are going to be mindful eating, like not skipping meals, eating, smaller meals, not, and exercising, portion control, and, eating a couple meals a day, at least three, 5 to 6 small meals are usually the gold standard. Also, movement and exercise is very important, no matter what diet you're on. And the quality of the food you eat. Once again, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, whole grains. Whole grains, there's a difference between white rice and brown rice. I know white rice is usually more culturally appropriate, but brown rice is the whole grain version. Oatmeal, quinoa, couscous, they're whole grain versions of pasta, for example. Lean protein, the smaller the animal, the less saturated fat. That's why poultry and fish are so popular. And then also healthy fats, avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, grapeseed oil. Those are all things that you want to learn while you're on your weight loss drug. So you can keep the weight loss, you can maintain it after you get off the drugs. Aha. What a good cheat day option. So first of all, you need to quantify your cheat days. A lot of my clients, I recommend they either have an 80 or 90% rule for consistency. So one day is not going to knock your dietary goals out the park. I mean, it's off the rails. And so let's say if you eat 3 meals a day and you do 80% clean and 20% cheat, so out of 21 meals, 4 of those meals can be cheat. I would recommend, so if you eat a healthy breakfast every day, lunch and dinner, for example, on Saturday and Sunday can be cheat. I wouldn't, like if you eat 2,000 calories, I don't recommend doubling that or completely going off the rails and just eating whatever. So if you want to eat a burger or some pizza or, fried fish or something like that on those days, then have at it. You can still stay within your calorie level. It's just, instead of eating baked fish, you're eating fried fish, and you might have a different type of side with it. And so, the short answer is it's whatever you like. Different cultures and different people have different things that they like to eat, from a nostalgic standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, from an emotional standpoint. And so on those days, my preference is a 90-10. So, you would have 2 cheat meals in which you can eat whatever you want, and then 90% of the time you eat clean. So cheat options or whatever floats your boat. I mean, whatever you like to do. It's best to try to stay within your calorie level so you don't at least have to worry about that. And then the only thing you have to worry about, of course, the quality of the food, the processing of it, and might not be fresh fruits, might not be fresh vegetables, might not be whole grains. It might be animal protein, but the way it's prepared might be a little bit higher in sodium and fat. But that way, either 80% or 20% consistency is what you focus on, and then the cheat days, eat whatever you want. My only suggestion is sort of try to almost stick in your same calorie range, so you don't blow the doors off your lifestyle plan too much. All right, so we got one last question before we wrap up. Feel free to ask one more question, but this has been great. Okay, we got, can you recommend reliable sources or tools to help me learn about managing more through my hypertension in my diet? So yeah, the American Heart Association is probably a really good website. And they have a lot of tools for screening. They have a lot of tools for recipes. Another great recipe website is eatingwell.com, eatingwell.com. And they have recipes based on conditions, so you can put in hypertension. And then the American Heart Association has a lot of resources that, are tailored towards, people of different ethnic backgrounds, so they have some great resources. They even have an African American cookbook, for example. And then there are definitely some books on Amazon, written by Black MDs and RDs that are available. You can just Google, hypertension diet books or resources in African American, and they should come up. But yeah, so the American Heart Association, eatingwell.com are two places to go. And then, of course, you can Google the DASH diet, and a lot of resources will come up based on that Google search. Great question. All right, I think we're close to wrapping up. So definitely have enjoyed the questions, and um, hope you've learned a lot. And be on the lookout for the articles that'll be published once a month. And then we'll always, try to have an Ask the Dietitian session on that particular topic or any topic as well. So once again, thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you the next time.